and you always had a new refresh in a couple of years, so no continuity necessarily. But when I was doing the Shazam thing, I first thought, how do you make it a family? I came up with all these ideas of why Billy tries to recreate his family, because his family's killed. Why does Freddie not age when he changes? And Freddie was, you know, a basketball, football, sports star in school, and then he got crippled by Black Adam, or by Captain Nazi. So he just wanted to be back whole. He wanted to be himself when he was a sports star. So he didn't look beyond that.
By Maguire, and I think even as a kid I responded to the fact that was better stuff.
Oh yeah, he was.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. C.C. Beck's was very cartoony, and Roy was very realistic.
It was really nice stuff, and I mean, people obviously we all still love that stuff. The covers, he did the covers where he worked on mostly he was slow, I guess, and he would do like a head or a figure, and then they'd have other people do it just to maintain a schedule. But
right, and I guess Mark Swayze fell in between with Mary Marvel. Yeah, because it was
I think it was Jack Bender. Didn't Jack Bender create Mary? Or,
yes.
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of, you know, contributors to these things. It's never one person, you know.
Now, you did a long run on Superman as a writer and an artist, and then you moved over to Power of Shazam. And considering how similar they are, as a writer, how did you find ways to differentiate their use of powers and their conflicts and opponents?
It all came down to who was the main character, you know, who was the guy in the suit to me. And again, it was Billy, so it was projecting from a kid's perspective. He saw things more black and white, but also good and bad. Like if he stopped a crime, he felt like it meant something. And I thought that through. When you're an adult, you realize a guy can get, you know, nabbed for a crime, and he can go get out and commit the same crime or worse crimes. But from Billy's perspective, it was, oh, I'm doing good here. There was no evil politicians or any of that in his, you know. So with Superman, I always felt like there's another case where I always took the side that since Superman was adopted, he wasn't necessarily an alien. He didn't think of himself as an alien. He was a Kansas boy because that's what he was raised as. And I think him learning that he's a Kryptonian is probably akin to somebody who was adopted who finds out they were adopted when they're 20 years old or something. You know, it's a culture shock thing more than...
Marty Pascoe said that was the way he identified it.
Well, Marty being an adoptive kid, the connection makes sense, right? Kevin.
Yes.
You look bored, so let's talk to you for a second.
Okay.
No,
I'm learning stuff here, so.
All right.
We just wanted to tell you you're adopted.
Explains a lot.
Okay. So, you did the 6 issues.
Yeah.
You haven't drawn the characters since in any...
Mary Marvel I have.
Right. You did her in, I Can't Believe It's Just a Scene. But would you want to go back and do more with the characters?
Now I'm hearing them talk about it, yeah.
You know, visually, how would you, you know, again, Mary, how would you approach her compared to the other heroines and all? Because, you know, Fire and Ice tend to be a little larger than life. Mary's still a teenager.
Well, yeah, yeah. How would we...
You know, visually, how would you help differentiate her physically?
Oh, and I guess I'd make her shorter.
You know, you also made her more of a teen body. I mean, she was not as fully developed.
Right, yeah. Well, you know, I don't know if I should tell this story, but... No.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't my idea.
That
It wasn't
too
my
young.
idea. This is what Giffen wanted to do. He wanted to have her in the white outfit. Then he wanted to have her lose her virginity, then switch to the red outfit.
Oh, God!
And DC, for some reason, said no.
Well, thank God!
These were the things we were fighting against when we were doing the
That's
book.
why nobody gives us their characters.
You're making up your own now, aren't you?
Yeah.
What about you, Jeff? You want to do? You've given thought to this. Do you want to pitch DC more ideas, or?
I do. I would actually like to more stuff focusing on Mary Marvel, because a teenager who can throw a car at somebody is just really interesting. someone who looks big enough to do it, it's like, all right, yeah, whatever, but it's just more interesting. I like the she really gets you to the empowerment thing, because like you said, she still looks 15 or 16.
She's
Right.
the girl next door with power.
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah. But you, at the same time, also, you don't have to worry about the kid in the same way. You like, oh yeah, she'll just beat up everybody. This will be great. Especially the Captain Nazi. He's a Nazi.
Jeff,
See how relevant that would be?
Yeah.
I love it.
He's wearing a swastika on his chest. It's okay to just wail away on it.
Very, very bold statement.
And it is my bold statement against Nazis.
So, having worked on Batman 66, could you conceive of a Batman 66 Shazam 76?
Oh, like when he's
the
riding
formation,
around
yeah.
in the Winnebago with Ventor
Yes.
and everything.
But you gotta show up like strapped to a truck.
Yeah, he's just doing this flying.
But, you know,
Throw
having,
light on the panel and show the back
having
end of it strapped
adapted
to a
that
truck.
tonality, could you see the filmation in the Adam West Batman meeting up?
Yeah, but you know, you'd have to get Isis in there, because she always was
Yes.
back to back with it. I feel like she ought to be in on that too.
She's
We
the
have to
only
reclaim her.
superhero who wasn't Playboy.
Joanna Cameron, the actress, not the,
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
character.
yeah. Also, she's on one of my favorite episodes of Columbo.
Oh, yeah?
It's the one where Dick Van Dyke murders his wife. Everybody murders their wife on Columbo. So, you know, it's like, and then his photography assistant is Isis.
Joanna Cameron.
Yeah, I'm just calling her Isis. And wow.
No, they can't call her that now.
I was gonna say,
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's all. Yeah, the real world just really keeps stepping on all over our stuff.
it helps with Captain Nazi. But
Yeah, yeah.
So, what's on your mind, ladies and gentlemen? And what sort of things would you like to ask this august panel of experts?
And Kevin.
Yes, all the way back there.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Joanne Cameron originally played Isis in the Filmation live action show, and I remember it well. I think she also had appeared on an episode of the live action version of Spider-Man in the late 1970s.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Marvel.
All right, not that I ever watched it, but
It's now the Joanna panel. We're just talking about her. She
she was gorgeous.
She
It
was
a fun
gorgeous.
show. What's that?
Isn't that what this panel is about?
Yeah,
It
really.
could be. Other questions
They
about
didn't want us
Captain?
to call it the ISIS panel for some reason.
Yes, sir.
I always thought the Cap worked better in the World War II setting. And I was always wondering why when crisis happened, why DC just didn't automatically, when they had to find someone to replace the Trinity in Golden Age, they didn't use Cap Marion Jr.
It's a really interesting question. I can tell you that when we were planning the crisis, Roy very much wanted to do a modern day Captain Marvel. It was part of one of the promises he extracted from Dick Giordano, which led to the Shazam New Beginning series. I don't know if it was ever conceived, possibly because we didn't fully own the character at the time, to be able to integrate him back in the World War II stories. Could be.
Did you watch those Tom Tyler serials?
Yeah.
They were cool.
It was The Flying was great.
The
for
Flying,
me.
it was the Lineker brothers, I think, did the.
Yeah, with
They had
on
like
wire.
Yeah.
They had like a
Any
dummy on the
force
machine gun
perspective
people?
thing. Yeah, Captain Marvel will pick up a machine, beat the guys up, take their machine gun, shoot them, and then throw somebody off a building, and he'd watch to make sure they fell. Yeah,
They'd be running away.
like that
shot up the
Captain
back.
Marvel did not mess around.
That's the version Zack Snyder's going to be doing.
Yeah,
Well, even
go
Denny
find
O'Neil,
those serials.
Captain Moore or Batman, machine gun people.
Yeah. Sir.
Well, I want to talk about something, we're coming to a time when Shazam is returning to the comics line with all of that. Now, what do you think of that? Is there any advice you would give to the people doing it?
What advice would you give to the current creators of Captain Marvel in comics?
You're not looking at me, right?
I'm looking at the
Think it through. Just don't make it generic. I mean, it also, again, there's certain concepts. Here's a problem with, like, comics went through a dark era, and instead of, everything had to be dark. That was the pressure. Everything had to be dark. Otherwise, you wouldn't take But in real life, not everybody is alike, and I used to always argue that. It's like with Captain Marvel, let's make him dark. With Mary Marvel, let's make her dark. Everybody doesn't have to be the Punisher, but yet a lot of people feel like that. And not everybody is alike. Just like you can argue with your friend that he may have different political beliefs, doesn't mean you hate him. It just means that you're going to argue about it.
Oh, it does mean.
I do hate Trump.
No, but I'm saying that there's a point where, our world and everything, it works, politics works in the middle, it works with compromise. And when it's people are on opposite ends, that's when it's dysfunctional. I mean, you need to come together and compromise on things. It doesn't mean you have to agree with, Nazism or whatever, but you can't get anything done productively unless both sides can agree on stuff. That means give and take. So, but like with comics, the same thing. You can't have all Batman. Every character can't be Batman, because then Batman.
Have you seen the DC line lately?
But I'm saying Batman's not unique.
I believe
These
he showed
characters-
something recently.
Whenever any of us, I would guarantee you, when any of us ever got a project to do, we would look at how it started. You go back to the beginning of any of these superheroes, and maybe there's a not tremendous amount there to work from, but the basic concepts were all somewhat interesting, whether it was a guy being a radio engineer or, you have to look at that stuff, and that's what I think a lot of times people don't really think it through. And there's no excuse for it, because now you have Google and you have Wikipedia and stuff. Back then, we would have to find old comics. It was harder to research stuff. When I did Shazam, I had to get
civilians think that writing comics is easy. I run into psychiatrists and people like that who think, well, this is really simple. Technically, it is harder to write comics than television or movies. Anybody I know that's worked in both media, and that includes me, says the same thing. It is easier to write a 20-minute teleplay than a 22-page comic book, because you have so many more storytelling resources. You have what the actors bring to it. You have music, you have motion. Comics are, Eisner knew, you learn from mimes. You learn from looking at stories in museums. All of those medieval paintings are stories from the Bible, from mythology. That's what those guys did. With body language, they told a story. And that's what I learned from Will. I was in a very gentle argument with him at a party once, and I said, there are things that comics can't do. And one of them is Hamlet's soliloquy. It's just, you can't make that transition. 6 months later, Eisner publishes Will Eisner's Hamlet, and what he did was do that soliloquy in terms of body language. And I thought, yeah, this is what we should all be doing all the time. To hell with crashing through the wall, that's boring now. Every damn movie except the Batman movies ends with two guys in suits bashing each other and 15 explosions.
One of the strengths that the gentleman flanking each end of the table here has brought to their work is that it's the body language, facial expressions. There's no genericism to it. So it's possible, just not enough people to do it.
Well, so many young comic book guys, artists, think it's about crashing through the walls.
They like drawing that, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
because
that's
it sells
to them
resale
is
value.
comics. And what Eisner knew when he was 18 was it's the equivalent of catching somebody who's moving at exactly the moment when they are most expressive. And that's what you draw. You can do it with cameras too.
Yeah.
And it's become such a cliche, okay, guy in funny suit A is gonna beat up funny suit B. What's good about the three middle Batman movies is none of them end with Batman bashing somebody.
True.
they are about something. They are about Bruce Wayne's deciding to sacrifice himself for the greater good. It's real drama. It's not just action.
That's what makes this stuff, makes it special, is the emotional content. That was, for me, like the Superman movie in 70,
Oh, yeah.
whatever it was, 78.
40 years
The best
ago, because the
Superman
40th anniversary release is
Well,
coming.
the thing about it was, it was cool that they had some effective flying scenes, but you knew, I mean, we all knew it was like, well, that's really hard to do, right? So you kind of roll with it. But it was the relationship between the characters, between
yeah.
Clark and Lois and even Ma Kent and Pa Kent.
Well, we all go back
That's what
to,
made it, unique and interesting.
we go back to that apartment moment where for the first time you understand
Right, where he projects. that
where
different-
Christopher Reeve shows you how the glasses and the body
He
language.
starts to sit up and starts to take his glasses.
Lois.
I always think
Oh
of
my
these
God,
at the end
fuck.
of Superman
So
2,
loud.
when he walks into that diner to beat the
Yes.
crap out of that guy, and the audience cheers. And this is
not a
a
Superman
god,
moment, though.
and he's going to beat up a human, and we're cheering for that because we love that guy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because we love that personality, that guy.
But that's one of the reasons I didn't like that movie.
Well, that wasn't my favorite one, but people,
That
audiences
scene
cheered
felt
because
like-
they're like
It's like
because they so connected with Christopher Reeve
Oh, yeah.
that they didn't want to see
He
him.
wrecked a pinball machine.
And Batman always solves things by violence, and that deeply bothers my own conscience. So I created a character to at least be a voice for pacifism, Leslie,
Oh, sure.
model on Dorothy Day.
I did not
I
know
mentioned,
that. I did not know that.
oh, you didn't?
And now you do.
We
I
all
mentioned
learned
that
something
to
today.
Devin.
The more you know.
And the kind of person Devin was, she was so hungry to learn. I mentioned that in passing. And I saw her 2 weeks later, and she had read everything that had been written about Dorothy, everything that Dorothy had ever published. She saw the movie. Nobody saw that movie, but Devin did.
Okay.